I will be asking Mr. Secretary, what are you hiding? I'll be calling on the Secretary to explain to the American people under oath where these children are right now and where their parents are. I'm giving this advance notice to Secretary Azar so that he's going to have plenty of time to find the answer.
We still don't know. Democratic Senator Bill Nelson of Florida says he will demand answers about the children when Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar, the top official at the department charged with reuniting the families, is scheduled to appear before the Senate Finance Committee this morning to discuss prescription drugs. So that's a good warning. We're really interested in the answer to that question. Joining us now, Senator Nelson's Republican colleague in the House, Congressman Carlos Curbelo of Florida. Yesterday, Congressman Curbelo toured a facility run by the Archdiocese of Miami that is currently housing some of the children separated from their parents, as well as children who crossed into the country alone. Thanks very much for being on the show, sir.
Good morning, Mika. Thank you.
Tell us what you saw. How many children were you able to see? What are the conditions like? What are the questions that you had about them?
Well, thank you, Mika. And to Senator Nelson's point, yesterday I did see 70 of these children. 22 of them were actually separated from their families at the border. The other 50 or so came across the border unaccompanied. They were a little older. And I can tell you that we should be very grateful to Catholic Charities and to the Archdiocese of Miami. The images we've seen over the last few weeks have been very difficult, very painful. The images, what I witnessed yesterday at this shelter, was truly uplifting. The children all had toys. They had colorful bedspreads. A group of small children was on their way to the Seaquarium. They were smiling. We were able to ask them questions. We were able to interact with them. And I looked at that and I said, this is who we are as a nation. Coincidentally, that's the same shelter that some 60 years ago welcomed Cuban exile children who were only expecting to be there for a few months and ended up staying in the country forever for the most part.
So Congressman, let me ask you, how old were the children who had been separated from
22.
their parents at 22?
The youngest little girl that I spoke to was 5 years old. And you could tell that they had gone through a difficult experience, but you could also tell that they were being treated with extraordinary kindness, that they were seeing things that they had probably never seen in their lives. They were living in air conditioning. I'm sure most of those children had never experienced that. And they were getting to see my town, the city of Miami. So we know that these children will soon be reunited with their families.
Congressman, do we know that? Because obviously for any 5-year-old, even if you take them to the Super Bowl,
they want their mom or dad.
I know you agree.
Aunt.
And I don't want anybody to misread what you're saying here. I mean, you would agree, would you not, that
that's absolutely right.
This is an extraordinary, traumatic, painful experience for a 5-year-old ripped from their mother's arms. You agree with that, first of all, correct?
Of course,
okay,
and I have strongly opposed that policy. I can tell you, Joe, is that some of the staff from the Archdiocese of Miami told us that already some of the children who were there were on their way to being reunited with their families. So we know that process has started.
The process has started, and do you have any information that could help us out on what you said regarding, you said we know that all of these children will be united with their parents. That would be very good news if you have information that we don't. How do you know that, and what should we know?
Last week, I met here in the Capitol with Secretary Nielsen, Department of Homeland Security, and she assured me that as soon as the parents were back in her custody, because remember, they were going from Department of Justice back to Department of Homeland Security, then the reunification process could begin. And I was happy to learn at this facility yesterday that indeed some children's parents had already been released back to the Department of Homeland Security, and those children were on their way already to being reunited with their parents. And this is what we have always said. We must find the balance between enforcing our country's immigration laws, because we cannot be a lawless country, that is true, but we also cannot traumatize children in this way, and we have to keep families together as much as possible.
Amen.
Congressman Steve Schmidt, good morning. I'm going to ask you a yes or no question here. I appreciate your evangelism for Catholic Charities, but I'm going to ask you a question as a political leader, a member of Congress. Is this policy immoral and cruel? Yes or no?
I believe so, and I've spoken out against it since day one.
So when we hear Mike Pence, for example, say in his platitudes to the country, I'm a Christian, I'm a conservative, I'm a Republican in that order, why shouldn't I think he's a fraud?
Well, you can think whatever you want about whoever you want. I can speak for myself, and I can tell you that I found that policy to be completely objectionable, wrong, immoral, unnecessary. And look at what happened. The American people spoke out, members of Congress from both parties spoke out, and the administration backed off. This is the way it's supposed to work. That's something we should celebrate. It does not happen that way in Cuba.
Right.
It does not happen that way in Venezuela or Russia. So this is a difficult situation, but at the end, I think most Americans got the result that we wanted, which was to stop this.
And Congressman, again, just to underline the fact you spoken out forcefully against this policy from day one. Let me ask you about the fixes. Some people are talking about getting rid of Flores so the children can stay with the parents even if they're incarcerated for more than 20 days. That obviously has issues. Ted Cruz has talked about sending more lawyers down there, actually something that I think is a good idea, so you can process these parents and hopefully quickly be able to turn them around in 20 days. What legislation do you see passing that has an opportunity to fix this problem so we don't ever see this happening again?
Well, what we need to do is empower the government to both be compassionate to those who are coming to our country, because we know most of them, and don't get me wrong, if you're a drug dealer, a human trafficker, a gang member, I think you should be met with the full force of the law. But if you are a family that is fleeing violence or looking for an opportunity to work in our country, it does not mean that we should just announce that everyone who's in that situation will be allowed into the country, but we should have some discretion, some kindness, some compassion, and those families should be kept together while their cases are being adjudicated. In addition to that, yes, I do think we need more judges, and we have to prioritize these cases. If an undocumented immigrant came alone and is an adult, well, we'll give that case a lesser priority. If it's a family unit, 2 parents and 2 small children, let's put that case up at the top of the pile, get it processed and adjudicated so that the family won't be in detention past a couple weeks or 3 weeks.
All right, Congressman Carlos Curbelo, thank you very much for being on the show. We appreciate your honesty on the policy, especially.
Thank you so much, Congressman. Great to have you with us. I just real quickly want to underline Mike Pence. Says he's a Christian first. That's fantastic. I'm sure he is. I do wonder if he has Jefferson's Bible, if he's cut out Matthew 25, if he's cut out the part where Jesus actually is asked by disciples, who is going to be able to sit on your right hand and who's going to be cast away? And Jesus goes through the list. And he talks about anyone that does this for the least among us is doing it to me. They will be with the sheep. Those who don't will be tossed out, will be with the goats. I mean, it's as straightforward. It's the red letters in the New Testament. It is one of the few times where Jesus says, and I'm not a theologian. My parents did make me go to Baptist churches 4 times a week for about 21 years. It didn't take, but I do remember a lot of Bible verses. It is one of the few times in the New Testament where Jesus doesn't say we are saved by faith and we are saved by grace, which we are. It's one of the few times, though, Jesus says, this is what you have to do to get to heaven, and if you don't do it, you will not get to heaven. One of the few times he says, this is it, and it is giving a cup of water in the Master's name, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, visiting those in prison, and again, helping the least among us.
The extraordinary.
All I am doing here, by the way, don't hate the messenger. This is Jesus talking.
The extraordinary and astounding hypocrisy of it to see the constancy of the assertion of Christian virtue by political leaders in this country who have established internment camps for babies and toddlers. And by the way, and I never in a million years thought I would sit here or anywhere and say this, but the difference now between Venezuela and Cuba and the United States is this. Venezuela and Cuba are the countries without internment camps for babies and toddlers.
Still ahead on Morning Joe, NBC's Mariana Atencio introduces us to a woman who has dedicated her life to helping more than 1,000 children who are in danger of being separated from their parents due to deportation.
It's just amazing how a woman that I've never met in my life at first can just give me so much love and welcome me so much as her own child.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.